Hello, Orland family. This is your Counselor Briggs from high school. Today I am coming to you from not in Orland. I'm actually visiting my family to self-isolate in San Diego, and I thought, oh my goodness, special guest Grandpa Jay here. Grandpa Jay's been one of my biggest role models, if not my greatest role model, throughout my lifetime, and he's got all kinds of great wisdom and knowledge to share. And I thought that today he would be the perfect person to join me to talk about a subject that I see kind of lacking in today's society. I think it would be beneficial for us to maybe kind of take a quick minute to talk about that. And that's the subject of grit. So essentially, grit is perseverance through tough times, and when we're struggling through situations or chaotic times, tough life, whatever's going on, our resolve and our tenacity to push through and continue on, even if we aren't happy with our situation or we're struggling. It's our pushing on. So, Grandpa Jay, would you kind of share with us what grit is?
Grit?
Grit.
Well, grit can be many things. Grit can be the measure of sandpaper, going from the highest to the lowest. Grit can be grits, which is a dish they eat back in the South. Not very good. Or grit can be the measure of a man when things are really, really tough. It's a true measure of a man, how he reacts in a crisis situation. Think about the soldiers on Omaha Beach on D-Day. That was courage. Some people call it grit. Think about the paratroopers that jumped into the dark of night behind enemy lines in Normandy in the early morning hours that day. Think about the Marines in Fallujah. Think about how you feel when you couldn't pay your Costco bill. That's kind of a little bit of grit. To pull out your wallet and pay for that. But I think really the measure of a man when times are tough, and it seems like he's all alone and he has nowhere to turn, but yet rather than running, he faces it. You see, we have two basic instincts that Mother Nature gave us. It's either flight or fight. Fighting when times are bad is grit. Flight is cowardice. Being able to face something doesn't mean you're not afraid. It just means that you're not going to run. You got to face your problems. You got to hit them head on and do your absolute best, win, lose, or draw. To me, that's basically what grit is.
So fighting on, and when given the choice to turn away and run from a difficult situation or problem or circumstance, it's turning and facing it head on, whether that's a circumstance or a personal fear of ours or whatever the case may be. It's turning and facing it head on and pursuing an end beyond that without turning and running. Correct?
Exactly.
Excellent. And so what would be, can you give us a time when you exhibited grit? I know you've had a colorful career and a half, multiple careers. Can you kind of give us a brief anecdote of a time when your choices were either to turn and run or face and exhibit grit?
Well, I can give you a short story. When I was in the Army, I had volunteered for the Airborne. I was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division. Our first day in jump school, there were 540 some men there, and they told us to look at the guy next to us because he wouldn't be there when we finished, because it's completely volunteer. If you decide at some point in time you don't want to jump, you don't want to go through, then you can quit. And really, grit is answering the phone when your wife is calling. Hello? Yeah, give me just a minute. Bye. At any rate, each and every day, they ask everybody in jump school if they want to continue on, they wanted to quit. And there was always a line outside the office there quitting. Of the 540 some people that started jump school, only about 220 finished and actually got their wings. And I understand somewhat, because I know the very first time I walked up to the door of the airplane, looked out and saw how far down it was, I found out that it took a little bit of courage to go out the door of that airplane, depending on the parachute. So maybe that's a little example of grit.
Awesome, thank you. I know for me personally,
I have to go help my wife.
you may go help your wife, and if you come back before the video's done, cool. Otherwise, thank you for partaking in this adventure.
Pleasure talking to you.
So, a personal time in my life when I have needed to exhibit grit was I was in Europe on a trip, and I had a number of calamities hit, and I got woefully lost in Paris actually. During rush hour traffic, I was trying to drive, and instead of just kind of running and hiding, I took the resources that I had available and didn't have available, and I sought help, and I pushed through it, as well as a couple other issues. When I was a kid, I used to do 4-H, FFA, and everything. I had some issues with some animals that we had. We had some issues with some goats that we had, and then some pigs, and had to kind of saddle up and take care of the issues at hand with that. So in my own personal life, I have had opportunities to decide: do I run? Do I stay and work through the situation? Now, in our bodies naturally, we have that, like my grandpa was saying, that fight or flight response. There obviously is a time for fight. There's also a time for flight. In situations in tough times, that's when I would recommend that is a fight, if you will, using that grit to persevere. You know, you're struggling in your math class or something along those lines, and it's your desire to try and find an easier teacher, or to say, well, I don't understand the lesson, I'm just going to throw my hands up and go about my way. Unfortunately, throughout life, that we don't have those luxuries. You know, you got to buckle down, get help, ask for help, ask questions, try and work through the problem or situation, whatever it is that's going on. Now, in an emergency situation where you're physically being threatened, sometimes flight is the proper response. If I had a rattlesnake right here in front of me, my choice is not necessarily to actually fight the rattlesnake. I'm gonna be flighting and flying away, if you will, trying to avoid those situations such as that. However, the idea of grit and how we manage ourselves is a mindset, one that you can build, which comes from confidence, self-confidence, and the self-confidence of knowing, okay, I can handle this situation. I'm not weak. I know I can soldier through. Oh, look who's back. Grit can be, like I was saying, grits can be developed through your self-confidence in, I can survive through this situation, I can work through. I have a crisis in front of me. I'm not going to panic. Sit, think, sort out how to get from point A to point B and C and so on, to kind of carry on past the current situation. Do you have any ways that you can think of that grit's made or developed, or how we find grit?
I think grit or courage is hidden inside of most everybody. It's whether or not they have the wherewithal to dig that out. It's kind of like gold. You have to mine it. You have to find it. You'll find your courage, and you'll find your grit at the most unexpected times. When something happens in the family, and you find yourself holding your brother, your sister, your mother, and consoling them, and going out and taking care of the problem that occurred. I think that's how things begin to develop. I think that's how you find out who you are. You learn a lot about who you are as life goes on. You know your inner person. The one thing I've always thought, one thing my father taught me, was that you had to be proud of who you were. Not who people thought you were, but who you were inside. That's who you had to be proud of. And I think if you can develop that in you, and you can mine that, you can mine the goodness and the courage and the honor and the ethics inside you, then you'll have the grit that you need, and you'll be the person that you can be proud of yourself.
Definitely. My mom would always say, whenever I would find myself in a situation where I was almost tempted to give up, or I was frustrated, or just sent over the edge, my mom would always say, "Son, you are a Briggs. You are a LeSueur. You do not give up. You do not get pushed around. You do not throw it away. You sit down, you sort through the problem, you push against the problem, and you resolve the problem." It was one of the things that it didn't make much sense when I was a little kid, when I was in middle school, when I was in high school, but and even in college, it was something that I didn't fully grasp. But once I got through college, it finally clicked for me that to be proud of myself and my family and my heritage and my background, and that we don't run in my family. We don't run from the problem. We have grit and courage. We charge forward in those difficult situations and whatnot. So, in the crazy COVID-19 times, or all this time while we're not at school, I would encourage you guys to not necessarily take this situation as this is the end, oh my goodness, not to see this as just a time to relax, kick back. I mean, yes, congrats, you got this nice little break, you can kind of rest a little bit, but it's also a time to keep your mind sharp, keep your skills and your wit sharp, hone in on some skills that maybe you aren't studied all that much at school. If you like cooking, work on your craft, practice your craft. If you like wood carving or something along those lines, work on that. If you're a car person and you like working on cars, work on that. Build things. Talk to friends and family with the social distancing and everything as much as possible, but don't take this as a time of panic and crisis. Take this as a time to practice and to mature and to grow yourselves and to learn. Don't let this be something that you run from, but you don't face it. Don't cower from it. Do you have anything to add to that, or anything else you'd like to share?
No, I think you pretty well covered it.
Stellar. All right, so Orland family, that is today's post for Tuesday, 24th. I thought that yesterday's video posted yesterday until I opened up my phone this morning or this afternoon, and it said it was still processing. So you get two today. One was free yesterday. Hopefully this one actually uploads today on Tuesday. If not, you'll get it tomorrow. Anyway, Grandpa, thank you very much. And Orland family, I'll see y'all later. Have a good one.